She smiled when she walked in, and that's what chilled everyone the most. To the cameras flashing outside, Elena Brooks looked untouchable. 29 years old, corporate project manager, no criminal record. Just a woman who carried herself like the verdict was already written in her favor. But behind that smile was a secret that had torn a small town in half. A year earlier, on a foggy November night, Elena and her fiancé, Adam Pierce, left a dinner party in her silver Mercedes. Witnesses said they'd been arguing, loud, heated, emotional. Minutes later, headlights crossed a yellow line. A head-on collision. Adam died instantly. So, did Melissa Gray, a mother of two who was simply driving home from her night shift at the hospital. When police arrived, Elena was covered in glass and tears. She told them Adam was driving, that he lost control, that she tried to stop him. And for a while, people believed her. She looked broken, heartbroken. But when investigators dug deeper, the truth began to shift. Her fingerprints were on the steering wheel. The airbag DNA showed she was in the driver's seat. And the black box in the car? It didn't lie. Speed, 82 miles an hour. Seatbelt, fastened on the driver's side. Passenger side, empty. Still, Elena smiled through every hearing, every headline, every accusation. And as the trial began, that same calm expression stayed on her face. A smile that made the entire courtroom wonder. Was she hiding fear, or was she hiding the truth? The trial of Elena Brooks became more than a case. It became a spectacle. Reporters from across the state filled every bench. Outside, TV vans lined the street, like vultures waiting for the moment justice would break. In the front row, Melissa Gray's husband sat perfectly still, a framed photo of his wife resting in his hands. He never took his eyes off Elena. Not once. The prosecution wasted no time building their story. To them, this was an accident. It was ego, pride, and fury behind the wheel. They called her a woman so desperate to protect her image, she buried the truth before the wreckage had cooled. They said the argument with her fiancé had reached its breaking point, and that in that split second of rage, she lost control, not of the car, of herself. Then came the evidence, the black box data, the fingerprints, the seatbelt marks. Every piece landed like a hammer strike, echoing through the room. The defense pushed back, soft, measured, pleading. They told the jury Elena was not a liar, just a woman shattered by grief. That trauma had blurred her memory, twisting facts into fragments of guilt and confusion. They said she'd already lost everything. Her fiancé, her future, her peace. She isn't deceptive, her lawyer said. She's drowning. But if Elena was drowning, she didn't look it. She sat there, calm, still, composed. Hands folded neatly on the table, eyes fixed straight ahead. Every now and then, she would smile, that faint, polished smile, the same one she wore when she walked on the first day of trial. When her attorney leaned over to whisper updates, she nodded gently, as if discussing business, not life and death. When Melissa's husband broke down crying during testimony, she looked away, expression unchanged. And when the prosecution projected a photo of the crash, a mass of twisted metal and shattered glass, she didn't blink. The jurors glanced at one another. Whispers began in the gallery. "How can she just sit there smiling?" one woman muttered. Even the judge's gaze lingered on her a little longer than before. The courtroom had seen anger. They had seen grief. But they had never seen this, a smile that didn't belong. And no one, not the jury, not the press, not even her own lawyer, was ready for what that smile was hiding, or for the one word that was about to wipe it away forever. The judge's voice broke through the silence, low, steady, and cold as stone. "Miss Brooks, please rise." Elena stood slowly. Her movements were deliberate, practiced, as if every gesture had been rehearsed with cameras. Her chin lifted, her back straightened. That faint, confident smile, the one she'd worn since day one, never wavered. The judge looked down at the thick stack of papers before her, eyes scanning lines of ink that carried months of testimony, pain, and lies. Then she looked up, directly at Elena. After reviewing the evidence and the jury's recommendation, she said, This court finds you guilty of involuntary manslaughter. A sharp gasp rippled through the courtroom. Melissa's husband covered his mouth, tears spilling silently. The reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashing like lightning in a storm. But Elena didn't flinch. Her lips twitched. That same tiny smile, still there, barely holding on. It was a look of someone who believed she'd managed to land softly, that her lawyers had done their job. Maybe a few years. Maybe probation. She could live with that. But the judge wasn't finished. Her tone shifted, colder now, deliberate. However, she said, eyes narrowing slightly, there's one aggravating factor this court cannot ignore. The air changed. You could feel it, like the moment before thunder strikes. Every head turned toward the bench. Even Elena's attorney glanced up, uneasy. The judge leaned forward. Her next word cut through the silence like a knife. Perjury. One word. That's all it took. The smile vanished. The color drained from Elena's face. Her breath caught in her throat. She gripped the edge of the defense table, her knuckles turning white. Her attorney whispered something, but she didn't hear it. She was frozen, because that one word, perjury, shattered everything. It meant the deal her defense had fought for was gone. It meant no suspended sentence, no early release, no second chance. The judge's voice returned, softer but heavier, almost mournful. Ms. Brooks, your lies not only obstructed justice, they dishonored the very people whose lives were lost. She paused, letting the words hang in the air like a verdict all their own. For your actions, this court sentences you to 10 years in state prison. The gavel came down, a sound that echoed like thunder through the room. Elena's body trembled. The smile that once felt like armor now cracked into tears she couldn't stop. The audience watched in stunned silence as the woman who thought she could outsmile the truth finally broke under it. And in the front row, Melissa's husband whispered the same word the judge had used, not out of anger, but disbelief, perjury. It was a word that finally told the truth Elena had spent a year trying to hide. The gavel's echo hadn't even faded when the sound of pens scratching filled the room. Reporters leaned forward, eyes wide, scribbling every tear, every twitch. But even they seemed quieter now, as if the weight of what had just happened pressed down on everyone equally. Elena didn't move. She stood frozen beside the defense table, her perfectly ironed suit wrinkled where her trembling hands clutched it. The same woman who had walked into court every morning with her chin high and her smile sharp as glass, now looked like she could barely breathe. Across the room, Melissa's husband rose from his seat. Slowly, deliberately, he still held that framed photograph. Melissa smiling, sunlight in her hair, the same photo he brought to every hearing, every painful reminder of what was gone. The room seemed to hold its breath. Elena turned. For the first time in the entire trial, she met his eyes. For a long moment, nothing, just two people connected by tragedy, standing in a space that suddenly felt far too small for both their griefs. And then her lips parted. The words came out broken, barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I just couldn't face what I'd done. Her voice cracked halfway through. The courtroom stayed silent, as if the walls themselves didn't dare to echo her apology. The bailiff took a cautious step forward, placing a hand on her arm. Elena Brooks, this way. She nodded weakly, unable to meet anyone's gaze. As she turned toward the side door, her composure crumbled. Tears streaked down her cheeks, cutting lines of the layers of courtroom-perfect makeup. Her shoulders shook. Her steps faltered. For the first time, she didn't look like the confident woman from the news. She looked like what she truly was, a person shattered by the truth. As she passed the front row, Melissa's husband didn't say a word. He didn't shout, didn't curse, didn't gloat. He simply held that photo tighter against his chest, fingers trembling against the glass. And then, just once, he nodded, not out of forgiveness. Not yet, but as if to say, quietly, now you understand. The door closed behind her with a soft click. And for a moment, the only sound left in that courtroom was the quiet drip of tears hitting the floor. Proof that justice, no matter how it comes, always leaves someone broken. They say the truth always finds a way out, even to the strongest smile. And for Elena Brooks, it took losing everything to finally let it in. Prison stripped away the layers she wanted behind. The pressed suits, the perfect posture, the smile that never cracked. She stopped wearing makeup, stopped performing, stopped trying to convince anyone, including herself, that she was fine. In her first months inside, she barely spoke. But one afternoon, during a counseling session, another inmate, a young mother serving time for a drunk driving crash, asked her a simple question: how do you live with it? Elena didn't have an answer then, but that question stayed with her. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to build one. She joined a grief and accountability program, first as a participant, then as a volunteer. She listened to stories that mirrored her own. Lives changed in a single reckless moment. Families shattered by a choice that couldn't be undone. In helping others confront their guilt, she started to understand her own. Years passed. She never appealed her sentence, never sought sympathy. Instead, every year on the anniversary of the crash, she would save up her commissary money, order a single bouquet of white lilies, and have them delivered to the Gray family. No note, no signature, just flowers. Because some apologies aren't meant to be read. They're meant to be lived in the quiet ways we choose to change. They say time doesn't erase what we've done. But if we're lucky, if we're honest, it can teach us how to carry it differently.